Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Mark Miller says that the relationship between the Crown and Indigenous peoples is broken because of land theft, and it's time to give land back. Meanwhile, back home on the range, the RCMP with their big guns invade Wet'suwet'en territory and forcibly remove Indigenous peoples from their lands. Oh, and for good measure, they arrest, lock up journalists so they can't cover the story. No, we're not talking about China or Russia. This is Canada, folks, and it sounds like we're in trouble. Climate change, together with environmental degradation, is wreaking havoc in BC. Prime Minister Trudeau even committed military to go to BC to help address this state of emergency. But where were the BC RCMP, you ask? Good question. Instead of sending all available officers to help with the state of emergency and save lives, RCMP's CERG, which is essentially the RCMP's special brand of private security for the extractive industry, dressed up in their military cosplay, gathered up their biggest guns and best sharpshooters, and arrived by the busloads in Wet'suwet'en territory. No, not to save lives, not to contribute in a meaningful way to the state of emergency. No, they were there to clear Wet'suwet'en people and their relatives from Wet'suwet'en territory for Coastal GasLink pipeline. That's right, they used their discretionary powers in the middle of a state of emergency to enforce a private court injunction for Coastal GasLink pipeline. It is against Indigenous law, BC law, Canadian law, and international law to forcibly remove Indigenous peoples from their own lands. And don't forget, BC and the federal government have both passed legislation to recognize that the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, UNDRIP, has applicability here in both BC and Canada. The United Nations Committee for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination has told Canada to stop Coastal GasLink pipeline, remove the RCMP and their weapons, and protect Indigenous peoples from violence, and that no project can go ahead without free, prior and informed consent. And why? Well, the RCMP have a vested interest in Coastal GasLink pipeline going through. It's reported that they're invested well over $100 million of their pensions in TC Energy, the parent company of Coastal GasLink pipeline. Our job is to call out grave human rights violations against any Indigenous land defender and push BC, Canada, Coastal GasLink pipeline, and the RCMP to stop breaking the law. The United Nations has called on Canada to stop these human rights violations, and Canada needs to listen.